Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and we have some really interesting stuff to go over here in today's video. So Verdansk is back. Of course, the update went through, and finally, after all this time, some of our questions have been answered. It's no secret that Activision was absolutely banking on the return of Verdansk to save Warzone and subsequently the COD franchise, so the big question is, did it? Did the nostalgia of 2020 revitalize the player base? Did the update go through without a hitch? And are hackers still running the show after the anti-cheat updates? We're going to be covering all of this and more here in today's video, so ladies and gentlemen, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So when it comes to the player count, it does indeed look like Verdansk made quite a splash for the community. Prior to the update, the average COD player count on Steam was somewhere between 40,000 and 55,000, and after they dropped Verdansk, the player count actually peaked at 113,000, with there being about 87,000 active players at the moment of me recording this video. Now this is quite notable for many reasons. For starters, it completely discredits all those naysayers who claim that nobody plays Call of Duty on Steam and that these Steam numbers don't matter. I've said it time and time again, but trends on one platform are certainly indicative of trends on other platforms, and essentially what the Verdansk update did on Steam was double the active player base, and I think it's important to acknowledge that. The same way it was important to acknowledge that Call of Duty lost over 40% of its player base in December, I think it's important to acknowledge that day one, Verdansk more than doubled the average player count for Call of Duty, but that does not mean this is without its downsides, however. When Black Ops 6 and Warzone first dropped back in November, the game peaked at 313,000 players, and so far with the relaunch of Verdansk, the game has peaked at 113,000 players. So while it's interesting to see so many people returning to play this map, it's important to remember that the peak player count so far is only about 1/3 of where Black Ops 6 and Warzone initially were. Another interesting fact is the player count for Verdansk is actually the highest player count that Call of Duty has had so far in 2025, beating out the previous player counts from January, February, and March. And so while the concurrent player count is up from before, it has pretty much brought Call of Duty back in line so far to where it was during the majority of the Modern Warfare 3 lifecycle. I suppose the big test for this will be this coming weekend as well as the upcoming week. The launch day of something like this, where they essentially bring back the original Warzone map and it kind of feels like Warzone Classic, you know, it's destined to be popular, of course, but what's more interesting is how the player numbers will evolve over the course of this weekend and whether or not they will continue to grow, stagnate, or decline. In my mind, 1 week is all we're going to need to see the true staying power of Verdansk. If we go 4 or 5 days and player numbers are going down, then that indicates a lot of people came back to check out the update before they left the game again. If player numbers continue to rise, then that means the update genuinely did bring players back into the fold, which of course is what Activision is banking on, and they may be banking on that a little bit too hard and overstepping their bounds, which is a perfect segue into my next topic. So the Verdansk update itself actually went through pretty smoothly, right? Especially compared to the Season 3 update for Black Ops 6. For Warzone, there weren't many problems with the download or the install. There aren't really any game-breaking bugs or glitches. Some people have experienced crashes, but honestly, that's pretty normal for COD on PC these days. In general, I have to say the update went through pretty well. Some people are even calling this the smoothest Warzone update in years, but was it really? You see, the thing about all the positive reception surrounding Verdansk, which of course there is quite a lot of that, is criticism of the update might be being censored for one reason or another. I have heard that there were hackers day one in Verdansk, and people were posting their clips online. Well, last night I was going through and I was watching these clips and I was screenshotting the usernames and everything so that today I could go through, record all those clips, and use them in my video. Sounds like a pretty solid plan, right? Well, imagine my surprise when I log in today and I find that all of the hacking and cheating clips that I saved have been removed by Call of Duty subreddit moderators. This isn't even just for one subreddit either. Here's a clip from the Modern Warfare 2 sub for some reason. I don't know why they posted it there. Here's one from the Black Ops 6 subreddit, and here is one from the COD Warzone subreddit itself. Now, I'm not one for major conspiracy theories. I think a lot of the issues with COD are pretty black and white, but why are Call of Duty moderators on Reddit removing videos of people cheating in Verdansk? It's not like this is a brand new concept or anything. You know, cheating and hacking clips are quite common on all of the different Call of Duty subreddits. In fact, I've used tons of those clips in my videos this year alone. Why is it that they are just now deciding to remove these videos? Is it because they want to control the narrative around Verdansk, or is it because Activision themselves have influence over these subreddits and they are suppressing and removing any criticism towards the new update? Again, I'm not major into conspiracy theories. I do think a lot of the problems in COD are just blatantly obvious, but when it comes to this stuff here, it's a little freaking creepy, right? When I see the overwhelmingly positive reaction to Verdansk, and then then I see that clips of cheaters are actively being deleted from the internet, it does paint this picture in my mind that something isn't quite right here. I mean, for crying out loud, the update itself went through pretty well. The map itself has received a ton of praise, players are freaking loving it, player numbers are on the rise, at least for the time being, so why the censorship here? It kind of muddies the waters when it comes to the whole reception and the entire narrative surrounding Verdansk, so I of course want to feature that here in this video today. Overall, from one man's experience and as somebody who never really cared for Warzone, I do think this update is solid. Like, I always give you guys my honest review, my honest opinion of things. I will say that this does nothing to fix the core problems in the multiplayer or anything like that, but it does give fans something that they've wanted back for a very long time. I even found myself digging around in that casual game mode where it's like 6 squads of real players, then like 100 bots or something like that, and that did make for some really funny clips and funny moments. The Verdansk map itself comes with the same positives and same negatives as the original, so for better or worse, it's here, and while I still think that Blackout was the peak for Call of Duty Battle Royale, it has been interesting to see so many people actually being positive about Call of Duty for a change. The problem is, however, it's Warzone though. They're not necessarily talking about like the overall COD experience or the COD multiplayer or anything like that. It's just like we had back in 2019 and 2020, where instead of focusing on multiplayer, fans and the developers are focusing on Warzone, which might cause further harm to the traditional 6v6 multiplayer experience. I do know that for a lot of fans, and I won't lie, myself included, a lot of us were sort of hoping that Verdansk would completely fail, because if it did, then that would mean Activision would have to do something drastic and make serious changes to the COD franchise if they wanted to win players back, but so far, it does seem like the Verdansk update is working. I don't think it's the wild and crazy reception that they were hoping for. I personally expected player numbers to be a bit higher, and I'm sure Activision expected way higher numbers as well, but like I said earlier, it was just day one, which was a Thursday, and the true potential of this update will be realized this weekend and over the course of the next 7 days. The relaunch of Verdansk has been a very long time coming, and it's been something that we've all been very interested to see the reception to, and this is only going to be the beginning. Like I said, it's only been 24 hours or so, so of course I will be monitoring everything over the course of the coming weekend as well as next week, so be sure to sub to the channel here and stay tuned for more updates and news videos. But for right now, I'm going to wrap up this particular video here today. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Leave your thoughts and feedback on Verdansk, as well as the reception to the Verdansk update, as well as the censorship of the cheaters down there in the comments. Thank you all so much for listening and for your continued support of my channel, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.